Hey, and welcome back to the Fantasy Football Profits. Guys, thank you so much for joining us here as we're going to break down our top predictions going into 2019, or excuse me, our top bold predictions, right? Some of the more interesting picks that we wanted to talk about, but they were a little bit crazy, made us look like we're a little bit of lunatics, and so we wanted to save it for a specific video. So hopefully you guys understand that. We've got some things to cover before we get started. If you want, you can skip a few seconds ahead or whatever. But the first thing being, we haven't actually picked out our topic and the research that we're going to do for our next video. It's just a great opportunity for you guys to say, hey, we've been waiting on this for a while. This is what we want. We want more sleepers, or we want more busts, or whatever exactly it is you want video topic wise. Make sure to drop a comment down below. Another thing that happened is we ran our playoff contest. That was many months ago, and we just kept waiting for people to send in their information so we could send out t-shirts to the winners. We finally got that, so in the next week we're going to be sending out t-shirts to anyone who finished. I believe it was the top 10, correct?
Top 10, yeah.
Okay, so we got that out of the way. We apologize for the wait. Unfortunately, we couldn't send it out until we were able to get everyone, and that took way longer than it should have, but it makes some sense. I guess some people really check out after the Super Bowl and everything like that. So let's move on. Before we get going, Rob, is there anything you want to say or anything that we got to cover before we start talking about some of these crazy things that we're expecting are going to happen this year?
Well, the only thing I'm going to say is we talked about a bold prediction. What's the definition of bold? I looked it up, and here's the definition of bold. A person, action, or idea. That's what we're sharing today, some ideas. Showing an ability to take risk, confident, or courageous. So I guess here we go. I'm going to give three guys. You're going to give three guys. Three bold predictions from each one of us for 2019. So should we get going?
All right, Rob, so here's your first bold prediction is on Royce Freeman. What exactly is your bold prediction and why?
So here's my bold prediction. I know a lot of people are not going to like this. I know they love Philip Lindsay. My first bold prediction is that Royce Freeman ends up the Broncos starting back by the end of the year, and he ends the year with more rushing yards than Philip Lindsay. So that's my bold prediction. Now I'm going to get into why that is, why I think that's going to be the case. Regarding Lindsay, this is not a question of talent. I actually like his talent. I think he's a very explosive, very gifted player. For me, it's size and durability. This is the NFL player. Players are huge, and we've often talked about this in our videos. Backs that are his size typically have a hard time staying healthy. There's reasons why. You look back at Darren Sproles' career, or even Tariq Cohen, who's very talented. These guys are very productive, yet they don't get huge role in terms of becoming the bell cow. These guys rarely get double-digit carries because coaches realize it puts these players at risk. So they mix them in different things, passing formation, a couple carries here and there. Small backs in the NFL do not translate well, and they often have a limited fantasy ceiling. Small simply doesn't sustain. This guy's 190 pounds, definitely small. There's a reason why coming out of college, a lot of teams left him undrafted. Now, what we talked about in a previous video, the ESPN did an article that went back to 1995 and said since 1985, I should say, that the average size of an NFL player has increased by 10%. Players are getting bigger, stronger, and faster. They've also done some research out there, and they found the ideal running back size-wise. The ideal running back is about 215 to 225 at 6'1". That's what they feel like is an ideal back that can be fast, durable, things like that. So even at the low end of the 215, he's still 25 pounds underweight there. His first season ended with an injury that was substantial. Things to come? Maybe. That could certainly be an indication. Once again, hurt the wrist. Could be a fluke. Maybe, once again, it's a size issue there. Another thing I want to say, too, is his success in year one, and he was very successful, once again, very talented player there. But some of his success was a bit exaggerated. He was in a very ideal situation for his skill set. Let me get into it. Here's what I mean by that. He was no doubt stunning last year, but he benefited greatly from light boxes. He only faced stacked boxes 14.06% of the time. Now, if you look at other years, there are times in certain seasons where the top back, in terms of like facing the most loaded boxes, can face loaded boxes 50% of the time. I think it was Leonard Fournette the year before. I think he faced loaded boxes like 48% of the time. It was a lot. He only faced it 14% of the time. And the reason why that was the case is Denver was often playing from behind. They're in passing situations, meaning that Lindsay faced defenses and spread formations in passing defenses. And I think this contributed to his high yards per carry and his productivity because he exploited space. And it really kind of set his skill set well like that. So I think that really helped. Now you look at playing from behind. Obviously, going into the offseason, you certainly know that Denver they want to change that. That's not what they want to do. You don't want to look ahead and say, well, he'll be successful because Denver's going to be brutal. They'll be playing from behind again. It could happen, but once again, teams will want to turn that around. Next season, defenses will take notice to his success. Now we're going to have a full offseason to take a look at him and make adjustments. They're going to do that. A prime example is Todd Gurley. His rookie season, his yards per carry is 4.9. Followed up the next year, his yards per carry is 3.2 as a sophomore. Teams made adjustments. Now, on the other hand, there's Royce Freeman. 230 pounds. He's an ideal back. He could become an every down back there. He could be a bell cow. This is a guy that could carry the ball 25 times a game and it wouldn't be an issue for him. Last year at times, Royce Freeman actually showed promise, especially in the preseason, and he's built more like your prototypical running back. Now, he did disappoint. This guy was a darling in preseason. You take, of course, everybody loved Saquon Barkley, but after that, a lot of people had this guy as the number 2 running back coming out his rookie season. He was being drafted very high by fantasy owners there. He didn't perform as bad as most people think. Now, we'll look at some metrics here, and if we break it down, what you'll find is Royce Freeman wasn't nearly as bad as we think he was. Consider this. Freeman elusive rate was 20th in the NFL, meaning that he was number 20 back in the elusive rate. It's not great, but it's very solid.
Well, and not only is 20th pretty solid, I just want to stop and say that's not something, and I didn't even know that until you just said it just now. That's not something you expect from a big running back like that. That's actually really impressive.
Yeah, and for a lot of you that don't know what the elusive rating is, obviously we've done a lot of research on it, but here's what it means. The elusive rating looks at success and impact of a runner independently from blocking in front of him. So they look at how hard he was to bring down apart from the offensive line. They look at things like missed tackles or forced tackles. They look at design run attempts plus receptions, yards after contact, and they factor that all in, and he was number 20 in the NFL. Not bad at all. He was ahead of Gurley, Kamara, and he was way ahead of Lindsey in that category. A lot of people don't realize that. He faced the second most boxes in the NFL. Freeman last year faced loaded boxes, 8 men or more, 36% of the time, whereas we talked about Lindsey was only 14% of the time, so that hurt. Freeman was 14th in the NFL in yards after contact at 3.22. Very solid number there. He was ahead of Gurley, Ezekiel Elliott, Adrian Peterson, Christian McCaffrey. He was ahead of all those guys in terms of yards after contact there. That's huge. Didn't know that, did you? I didn't know it until I started doing some research on this guy. I think Freeman was hurt by poor quarterback play. They had to play from behind often as a team. They couldn't stick to the run. His 4.0 yards per carry was not great, but for a rookie, it was decent, all things considered. And with Lindsey out in Week 17 there, that week went out, Freeman was the number 1 back in Week 17. He had 8 catches, and I think that bodes well for him. Obviously, he's not going to become a better pass-catching back than Philip Lindsay, but he's not a vulnerability. This is a guy that can be out there in 3 downs and be successful. In fact, one of the things he says he wants to do in this season is really showcase his pass-catching ability. If you go back to college, he was decent in college there. He was averaging 10 yards per reception. He had over 800 yards as a receiver out of the backfield during his collegiate career. And so that's my bold prediction. At the end of the year, Royce Freeman's the starting running back for Denver and ends up with more rushing yards than Philip Lindsay.
I absolutely love that pick. And when you talked about the yards after contact on average, that's a statistic that I've been really, really enjoying, right? You can look at simple things like yards and yards per carry. You can look at touchdowns and receptions. But once you start getting to a bit more of obscure stats, that's probably the very first one that I look at for running backs, right? Can this guy just simply do it when it looks like it can't be done? Can he do it when the defense is contesting him? The NFL, there's always competition. In the NFL, you're playing against some good defenses. They know what you're doing. They're smart. And in the end, you got to just be able to run guys over at this position. And that's one of the questions you have to ask yourself with most backs. Can he just hit a guy and knock him over consistently? And that definitely seems to be one thing. And then I love what you said. Coming out of college, he actually was used a lot. I believe he played for the Oregon Ducks, and he had actually set quite a few Ducks records. If you look through our videos last year, I talked to him about him quite a bit as he came into his rookie season. But it was surprising to see that he wasn't really almost at all. He was used quite a bit less in the NFL in the passing game. That was something I didn't expect to see this year. But like you said, I believe you said 8 catches in Week 17. That's very impressive, and I think that bodes well going forward. If he can catch the ball, then they can feel safer about keeping him out there over Lindsey. That's what I have to say, guys. Royce Freeman is a solid pick, and I completely stand by you.
All right. Excited to hear what you have to say about your first bold pick.
All right, so here we are with LeVeon Bell. This guy seems to be the darling of fantasy football. People absolutely love him. In fact, they love him going into this year far more than I expected. According to his average draft position or his ADP, he's being taken as the 6th overall fantasy running back in standard leagues. That for me was very, very interesting to see, right? People are saying not only is he an RB1, not only is he a first-round pick, not only is he an elite top-tier running back still, but he's actually in the first half of the top-tier guys. He's in the first half, or not top-tier guys, but in the first half of the RB1 situation, right, where he is definite first-round pick. That's something that I thought was completely strange. This is a guy who is going to finish. He will finish outside of the top. My bold prediction is he's going to finish outside of the top 15 in running back scoring. And I very well think that could go even further, that he could finish outside of the top 20 in running back scoring. And so this is what I want to talk about today, guys. First thing I want to say is I am not knocking on him in a lot of ways, right? He's still a great running back. I think he is. I think he's a very talented running back, and I think that he's been these huge fantasy seasons. Of course, he has a lot of value in PPR leagues, or a lot of added value, but there's a lot of concerns that I have for him. When you break down the numbers and you get into the in-depth stats, some things are missing. But before I can get to the stats, the first thing I have to address is the very obvious change in team. He goes from one of the top scoring teams in the NFL in Pittsburgh to one of the lowest scoring teams. He goes from a team specifically designed with a solid offensive line to help him out to a team that isn't. Pittsburgh Steelers ranked top 5 in offensive line in 2017 when he last played, and not only top 5 in their offensive line blocking ratings, but also in an offensive line that was specially planned, specially devised, whatever you want to say it, for his patient and explosive running style. This was not only one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, it was one of the few offensive lines that was specifically built for Bell's unique running style, and it is a very unique running style and has really changed the game. To a team in the Jets that actually ranked 30th in run blocking last season. The fact of the matter is he went from elite offensive line to one of the worst in the NFL, and that alone is a major, major concern for me. I don't know if you have anything to say on that before I continue, Rob, but that scares me right off the bat.
No, one thing I'm thinking about as you talk about LeVeon Bell, like you said, you're not against the guy. I think he's going to put up some okay numbers. It makes me think a lot of David Johnson last year, who disappointed. But because of sheer volume, he still was a quality play. He just wasn't a great play. And I think that's kind of what you're saying. I think you probably get into that more. But, I mean, you're not saying Le'Veon Bell is going to be a bust. But I think what's going to happen is that, he's not going to have nearly the success he had at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is a high-octane offense. And everything was like, that was a perfect situation, perfect utopia for him.
Absolutely. And then one thing I want to talk about is we talk about time missed. It's been 2 years now since he's played, 2 full years, 1 season that he missed there. And this time missed is going to hurt him. And we have proof. Why? All he had to do was miss training camp, miss OTAs, miss the preseason in 2017, and we saw a struggle. The first 5 weeks of the 2017 season, when he missed the preseason practices and preseason games, the first 5 weeks, he averaged just 3.6 yards per carry. Guys, that number is awful. That number is bad. His production was very slow. He finished the year strong, but you could tell that he was very hurt by being out of football shape. Now imagine taking a whole season off from football. That I would predict that's going to make a bigger effect. I really think it could. On top of that, this guy's had 8 career fumbles in these 6 seasons since he has joined the NFL. 8 fumbles. 7 of those fumbles came in the last 2 seasons he played. For whatever reason, he was a guy who came in the NFL and didn't struggle with fumbling, and it's starting to become quite an issue. 7 fumbles in 2 seasons is a real concern that needs to be addressed by the Jets. And hopefully, if you're a Jets fan, you're really hoping right now that the coaches are identifying that and working on that. So I think that's also a concern just as far as simply time missed, right? Is this guy going to be in football shape? Is he going to be 100% when the season starts? That's a question mark. I'm not saying he won't be, but it's something that's not a guarantee. And then the last thing I want to address is in 2017, he had good fantasy numbers off of the bulk statistics where he was getting lots of targets and lots of carries, but his efficiency numbers were very, very low, and they were alarmingly low. He ranked 23rd in breakaway percentage. That's not elite. He ranked 32nd in yards per carry. I believe it was just 4.0 yards per carry. That is below average. That is not good. He ranked 36th in yards after contact, the stat you talked about earlier, and I agreed with you, is a very important stat. 36th is far too low. And he ranked 32nd in elusive rating. For whatever reason, some of these efficiency numbers that are measuring how well he's doing things, they were simply too low. And I wonder if he's not going to be able to make things on his own and make plays on his own by breaking tackles, by making guys miss and having a solid yards per carry. How is he going to handle that when he moves into a worse offensive line? Again, I don't think he's going to be a terrible running back. I would call Le'Veon Bell an RB2, and probably a low RB2 at that, whereas ADP has him as a top half of an RB1, as one of the top 6 guys in the NFL for fantasy this year. I just don't buy it.
Yeah, one thing you didn't mention there, I don't know this guy's heart, but he sat out because he wanted the money. In retrospect, I think, what he got for contract, I think he lost out. I believe that he would have got about 14 to 15 million if he played last year with a franchise tag. And the question I have about his heart is, as an NFL running back, your career is maybe 8 to 10 years. Mm-hmm. And to sit back and to sit out an entire season, it doesn't remind me of a player who's hungry to get on the field and play. Once again, I don't know. Maybe this thing that I can't equate. I'm not in his shoes. But once again, I do wonder about this guy's passion for the sport. So, all right. Is that it you have for me?
That's it. That's all I've got. I think it's a pretty simple situation. Let's move on. I'm excited to hear about your next guy.
So last year, go ahead.
Well, so you're going to talk about this, but really, I think Mitchell Trubisky, this one surprised me, and I'll be honest with you, you got to sell me on this one quite a bit.
Okay.
Maybe I'm just a hater. Of course, you always do solid research, but Mitchell Trubisky, I believe you're predicting him to be around top 6 in quarterback scoring. Is that correct?
Well, let's get to that. It's okay that you can hate me, and I love to be right in the end, and I'll give you the I told you so at the end of the year. So last year, we had a very similar bold prediction in our video. I look back at our research. I forgot, who did we talk about last year? We do so many videos, so much research. Last year in the video, we predicted that Ben Roethlisberger would end up in the top 5 for scoring, even though at that point his average draft position was fluctuating between 12 to 15. Sure enough, he ended 4th in quarterback scoring, so we just nailed that pick, right? My prediction this year is Mitch Trubisky finishes in top 5 for quarterback scoring. Okay? Now, I actually don't think this should be that bold of a prediction, honestly. But the reason why I think it is bold, one, your reaction confirms that, but two, his current average draft position for Trubisky is 18th quarterback being taken, with rookie quarterback Tyler Murray ahead of him. Clearly owners are not big on this guy. About a month ago, his average draft position was 21st, so people are just not liking this guy. I think you're in the majority on this one, right? But I think he's primed for a big season. Even though the hype is not there, I think it should be. People forget, this guy was a former first-round pick, 2nd overall. There's a reason why he was a 2nd overall pick. A lot of experts saw his potential. And I think what's happened with players like him, that we've become spoiled with a player like Pat Mahomes who comes in the league, and the guy is crazy good, but a player like Pat Mahomes comes around every once, maybe 20 to 25 years. He is not normative. He really raised the bar on our expectations, but I think you have to remember historically the quarterback position is a developmental position that takes time. It used to be that quarterbacks would sit out a season or two and he would develop on the bench, things like that. Their maturation process took time in the NFL. I think a lot of people a lot of experts looking at Mitch felt that same way with him. In fact, I think a lot felt that his maturing process would be even longer. And the reason why is, you go back to college, he only had 13 collegiate starts at quarterback there in North Carolina before he was the number 2 overall pick. That's not a lot of starts at quarterback. So the skills were there, the gifts were there, felt like he needed to develop. First year as a rookie, he played with a lot of no-name receivers. Coach Fox was a coach that's not known to be an offensive guru. Then Nagy comes in. I think Nagy's offensive-minded, but now this guy who's still learning the game, still adjusting the NFL, has to learn a brand new expansive playbook, had to relearn a system. So how did Mitch progress in Season 2? Well, here's some thoughts from Coach Nagy as far as what he sees in him. Went on to say that Mitch was challenged. He did just fine. I can tell you he grew mentally. He grew in terms of the huddle procedure, calling the play, the line of scrimmage, making the Mike ID, that's identifying the middle linebacker, to center blocking scheme. Making the checkdowns, flipping that, all that. He did awesome. We have a wordy offense at times, and he aced it. Basically saying that we have a very complicated system, but he's making that adjustment mentally, which is good because we know the physical skills are already there. Mitch has underrated mobility, which is a huge boost for his fantasy value. Last year, he had 421 rushing yards and 3 rushing TDs, and there was a lot of games where there were blowouts and he didn't need to run the ball, or some games that he didn't play. He showed great progress last year. 24 touchdown passes in 14 games compared to 7 the year before. Now, if you take a look at his first 3 games of last year, he was bad. In fact, his first 3 games, he was brutal. But after that, from week 4 on, he had a quarterback rating of over 100 he averaged. So his QBR for the rest of the year was 100 after that. During that same stretch, he had 22 touchdown passes to only 9 interceptions. So in those 11 games, 22 TD passes. Obviously, you can do the math. That's 2 touchdowns per game. That projects out to be 32 TD passes over 16 games. Last year, that would have put him 6th in the NFL for touchdown passes, not including what he does with his legs. His quarterback rating jumped from almost 20 points from 77 to 95. Last year, he ranked 6th among all qualified quarterbacks in QBR during play action. So he's very successful in play action. Probably the mobility, he could get out there, do some different things. Nagy said he was on a mission in the offseason to improve the running game and to bring consistency. And I think that would be really good because that's going to help him in an area that he's skilled and gifted. If you can improve that running game, play action is going to get better. That's only going to help him. That's a strength of his. Well, they brought in Davis and they drafted Montgomery. Both can be effective 3-down backs, which is going to make play action so much better because last year, Jordan Howard was really a one-dimensional back. When he was on the field, play action was really limited there. I think it's going to complement his skill set. You look at Matt Nagy's creativity. Most teams that improve the running game, I think that's going to help his maturation process. Nagy taking over the Bears offense. So the year before, the Bears ranked 29th in the NFL. Last year, they moved to 9th. I think in his second year as head coach, I wouldn't be surprised if they improve on that offensive ranking. There's Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson, signs a big contract coming off the ACL surgery, has to learn a new offense, a new quarterback, all these sort of things. But down the stretch, they developed a lot of chemistry. I think Allen Robinson has wide receiver 1 potential. His last 8 games, Mitch Trubisky and Allen Robinson connected. Robinson averaged 76.5 yards per game. That would be 1,224 yards over 16 games. During that same stretch, he averaged 5 catches per game. That'd be 80 catches, so there's some chemistry there. He's also got second-year wide receiver Anthony Miller, showed promise, and Tariq Cohen is very dangerous in the passing game. I think this guy's a sleeper. I said that he could finish top 5. I'm making a bold prediction. But here's the beauty with that. You don't have to take him top 5, top 10, top 15. You can load up on your running backs, wide receivers, and just take this guy later on. And I think you're going to be fine just rolling with him. That's my bold prediction. Any thoughts? It's okay to disagree with me, by the way.
No, I love that bold prediction. It makes me nervous, but when you look at the stats, I think it really does hold up. And I absolutely love what you said. A bold prediction doesn't mean that you have to take a guy in the first round and put everything on the line. Sometimes a bold prediction is knowing that a guy is going to way outperform his ADP. And I love you can take advantage of that. I love some of the stats you shared. I love a quarterback who can play well off of play action, especially one who didn't have a good running game. What now when he has 2 good running backs? It's going to be a really interesting situation to watch. And like you said, the maturity's been there. I've loved the maturity from Mitchell Trubisky, and the athleticism has been there. Something just I was surprised to learn this offseason was his mobility and what he was able to do with his legs. I think really everything hits home there. Of course, we'd like to have him, have one elite wide receiver like Julio Jones or Juju Smith-Schuster, but not every guy in the NFL can do that, and you don't necessarily need one of those guys to be a top fantasy quarterback, especially when you're getting that boost with your legs. I like that pick. It's certainly a bold prediction, that's for sure.
Let's get to your next pick. I look forward to hearing this.
All right, so here's my bold prediction. Nick Chubb, I love this guy heading into this season. I very well think that he could be top 5, top 6 in fantasy running back scoring this year. I definitely think that that is the case. Now, the first thing I need to clarify before I say anything is that I'm referring to standard league. I definitely think he drops out of this in PPR leagues because he just doesn't have a lot of PPR value, but it is important for me to note that. Now, his average draft position has him being taken 18th overall and 12th and 12th running back in standard leagues, right? So I'm essentially saying he's going to finish twice as high up on this list, right? From 12 all the way up to 6 or 5 in that top sort of list. So first thing, I know everybody's wondering, why is this a bold prediction, and why are you taking him? And really, these two questions, I guess, kind of pit against each other, but there's so much other talent in the NFL, right? This is a bold prediction. Why is he a guy who's going to be able to find himself in the top 5, despite there being some insane other running backs? We know about Elliott, McCaffrey, and Barkley, but there's still Devonta Freeman, Todd Gurley, Melvin Gordon, Alvin Kamara, LeVeon Bell, David Johnson, James Conner, Joe Mixon, Dalvin Cook, Damien Williams. I mean, this year, going into this season, I feel like there's running back after running back after running back with some actually really high potential. This feels like one of the seasons with the most running back talent out there. I really genuinely feel that way. And so why do I think he's going to be able to beat those guys? For starters, last year, his metrics, his statistics, when you look at some of his in-depth stats, were off the charts. Absolutely insane. So that's what I want to do right now. Let's just take a minute to look at some of the different things that he was able to do last year. For starters, his 4.47 yards after contact on average was not only first in the NFL, it was first in the NFL, hands down. It was dominant. Now, I want to clarify all the stats that I've done in this video in the past for Bell, that I've done for Chubb, and that'll do for my next pick, will be for among qualifying guys. So if a guy gets 1 carry and breaks 1 tackle and has this insane, right? So it's got to be guys who have enough carries, enough catches, targets, and everything like that. I want to clarify that, but anyways, we'll move on. He was hands down in yards after contact with 5.2 yards per carry. He finished 3rd in the NFL. Pro Football Focus rated him tied for first with a 90.2 run grade. He had 28 carries of over 10 plus yards. That was 9th in the NFL. He had a 47.0 breakaway percentage. That's 3rd in the NFL. And maybe most impressively, his 103.3 elusive rating was not only first in the NFL, it was hands down first in the NFL. So like I said, his 103.3 elusive rating is really good. The next best guy, elusive rating, was 89, and then 85, and then 67. I mean, he's getting to the point where you're just barely out of the top 5, and he's almost already doubling some of these guys' numbers as far as elusive rating goes. I don't know how he did it. He's running over guys, he's juking guys, he's breaking away for big carries. Simply put, Nick Chubb, one of the best pure runners in the NFL, and I absolutely love some of the things I've really just seen from him on film. Do you have anything to say before I continue? Or
you're probably going to get to it. The one I love Nick Chubb, by the way. I think the one concern I had was so many mouths to feed there. And then you look at Duke Johnson, you look at Kareem Hunt. Well, now we know Kareem Hunt's suspended for 8 games, so that helps. Obviously, this argument for Chubb. But the other thing I think that's a huge boost for what you're saying, a more recent development, is that Duke Johnson is disgruntled right now. And a lot of talk that he wants to go to another team, he wants to get traded, they might cut him. He's kind of had it with him a little bit. A lot of complaining behind the scenes. And so if he ends up moving on, then your argument only gets stronger, obviously.
Absolutely, and I was going to mention that. I'm glad you did, but yeah, that's something that bodes very well. Any running back that can be removed from that offense is going to bode well. The big question that I have to address here is what the heck about Kareem Hunt? If Kareem Hunt is there, he's a talented running back. Does that hurt Nick Chubb's value? Yes, it hurts Nick Chubb's value when he's on the field, but he's suspended for the first 8 games for starters. That is the very first half of the season. And like I mentioned for LeVeon Bell, when you miss that much time, it takes time to get back into it. It took LeVeon Bell 5 games. If it takes Kareem Hunt 5 games, that's the first 13 weeks of the season. That means that Kareem Hunt can really only come in there for 2 or 3 weeks and have any impact on that offense whatsoever.
Well, and 13 weeks is a fantasy season.
And then boom, you're done.
Yeah, so
I mean, that's pretty much it right there. That's the thing that I want to say. Kareem Hunt's a talented running back, but with his suspension and time to earn his role and to get back into that offense, it was something that I don't see as much. I genuinely don't see it as much of a concern as other people are seeing it. Now, I know some people are afraid, what if he comes in and he starts to make an impact and he hurts Nick Chubb's value come playoff time? And you know what I have to say to you right now? We're in the preseason. You can worry about fantasy playoffs when you get there. Right now, you got to worry about getting to the fantasy playoffs. And if you need to make trades, make free agent wires, and you need to go out in the waiver wire and make moves and do all sorts of things and make the proper start-sit moves to win your championship league, you're going to have to do that. You're going to have to do that no matter what happens. But you can't worry about the playoffs until you've even had the draft, until you've gotten some wins, and it looks like you're going to win your division and get in playoffs. So you're right. I think we got to handle this one step at a time. The other thing why I listed off a lot of talented running backs. There's some seriously talented running backs in the NFL, but there are some major concerns with all of them. Devonta Freeman, his health has been a concern. Todd Gurley, his health has been a major concern. Melvin Gordon, his health has been a concern. Alvin Kamara, well, now they bring in Murray. They bring in Latavius Murray, and they've got Michael Thomas, one of the best receivers in the NFL, and they bring in Cook at tight end. I mean, there are so many weapons in that offense. Kamara is certainly hurt by that. I already talked about Bell and what makes me nervous about him. We talked about David Johnson struggling with that young quarterback in that struggling offense that doesn't have a lot of weapons. James Conner is a good running back, but that offense is loaded with weapons. Joe Mixon is good, but I definitely think Nick Chubb is better. Dalvin Cook is good, but I also think there's a lot of weapons in that offense, and there's health concerns. Damien Williams is a guy who could easily beat Nick Chubb, but I mean, there's only so many running backs, and these running backs all seem to have concerns. It's not a stretch for me to say that this guy could get in this list. Rob, you got to smirk. You got to say something.
Well, I love it because you went through all those backs and you said this, you said that. The only one you didn't say anything really negative about was Damien Williams.
No, I don't got anything negative to say about him.
And I love it because that's going to be my next bold prediction. But anyway, so that's all. I just thought that was a really good transition. He said, maybe Damien Williams could beat him. I think he's going to. But anyways,
I think he could. The last thing that I want to say that bodes well is the style of offense. Baker Mayfield is a very, very talented running back. He set the record for rookie touchdown passes by a rookie quarterback. But here's the thing. He attempted 486 passes last year. Just 25 of those passes were inside the 10-yard line. That means just 5% of his passes were inside the 10-yard line. That means that the passing game almost disappears once they get close to the end zone, right? That fits Nick Chubb's running style. I love that offense can carry down the field in the passing game, can do lots of things, but you know who's going to be punching it in for touchdowns all season long? That's going to be Chubb's role, and I absolutely like that. Touchdowns, that's really the name of the game in fantasy, isn't it? So that's the last thing I have to say, but yeah, great transition. I'm excited for you to talk about Williams.
So I'm the most confident of this bold prediction here. And for me, that's Damien Williams will end up top 5 in running back scoring, especially in PPR leagues. I think this is less bold than the Mitch Trubisky one. Currently, he's being taken as the 13th running back overall. I think his stock is going to rise before August hits. I think there'll be an adjustment. Right now, the 13th running back being taken. I love this guy. Now, he's going to be 27 next season. That's not young, but still young enough to have some great success. In fact, it reminds me an awful lot of Priest Holmes, who finally got out of Baltimore and got there. And if you know anything about Priest Holmes, I would encourage you to look this guy's up, look at his stats, see what he did when he went from Baltimore to Kansas City. For about 3 to 4 years, he was phenomenal. So I think there's similarities there. I look ahead to next season. Obviously, Kareem Hunt is gone, and he signed a 2-year deal for $8.5 million there. everything's continuing to build a case that he's going to be the starting running back for Kansas City in 2019. He showed versatility, impressive vision. He was a tough inside runner. He really showed that he could excel in all areas of the game there. Draft is done, and for me, I don't think they brought anybody significant that I think is going to really compete with him. I think he's going to be the starter, and the coaches have come out and basically said that. Now, some would argue, well, what about Carlos Hyde was brought in as insurance? I think Carlos Hyde's going to be a guy that's going to brought in as insurance. I think he's going to bring in to rest the guy, things like that. Look at Hyde. His yards per carry have dropped significantly in the last 2 years. And besides 2017, Carlos Hyde has not been a great pass-catching back per se, an area where Williams excels. Now listen to this. Okay, Damien Williams was #1 last year in catch percentage among running backs at 95.8. That was ahead of Christian McCaffrey, who, by the way, set the record for most receptions in a season for running backs. In this offense, okay, with Pat Mahomes at quarterback and the way they run their offense, the running backs must be proficient in passing situations, and Damien Williams, not only is he proficient in catching the ball, but the coaches have talked about how proficient he is in run blocking, how proficient he is in pass protection, things like that. This guy really can do it all there. Coaches have come out, like I said, and they said Williams right now is our lead guy. He's our go-to guy. What about talent for him? He's got good size, 5'11", 224. That's good. Let's look at the last 6 games. He was remarkable last 6 games of last year. During those last 6 games, twice over 100 yards rushing. During the last 6 games, he had 10 touchdowns. And a couple of them were playoff games, so this wasn't get bad teams. There were some tough games there. 3 times in those 6 games, he had over 100 total yards. His last 5 games, he had a tremendous yards per carry of 5.63, and many of those games were against very solid defenses. You look at defenses that were good against the run, the Chargers, Seahawks, Colts. If you look at them, they were all top 13 or higher as far as run defense. He had 28 catches for 226 yards during those 6 games. That projects out over 16 games to be 603 yards, 75 catches. Here's some comments from his offensive line, what they said about him. Now remember, this offensive line had Kareem Hunt, who was very successful too. Said we look at his energy that he brings, we love it, the way that he runs, physicality, he's got juice in him, he's able to break tackles out in space, he's a complete player. He's doing some awesome things on screens, pass protection, he's telling guys where to go, he understands the offense really well, he's making big splash plays at the running back position, his ability to do everything, he's a true 3-down back, this guy can do it all. It's from the offensive line, they love this guy. Talked about pass protection earlier. The guy said it there, the offensive lineman. You got to be able to protect your quarterback. He's going to be in there. They're going to protect Pat Mahomes. The fact that he can block well is so important there. You look at the defensive end, kind of commented on him. Some defensive ends that have played against him have said, when you look at now guys that have played against Hunt and Williams, they're definitely different, but they're similar that they both get downhill and they can run behind, that they run low. They're pads. They're very physical running backs there. I think in this offense, his ceiling is so high. You look at Hunt. For the 2 years that he was running there, his average points per game left him 8th and 4th for running back scoring. Now you take Williams, you put him in that offense. I think sky's the limit. I like this guy. Any thoughts?
No, my only thought to add is I let you pick who you wanted to do first, and I wanted to talk about Williams. If that tells you anything that we didn't even discuss and we want to talk about this guy in this video, that tells you we're both very confident in him. It almost shouldn't be a bold prediction. I feel like it should be so obvious that he's going to be this good of a running back. But for some reason, other people just don't seem to be giving him the credit that he deserves. And I love what you said. What was it? 10 touchdowns in the last 6 games?
Yeah.
That's insane. And that's on an offense where Pat Mahomes threw 50 touchdowns and had 2 rushing. When your quarterback has 52 touchdowns and you're still able to get your own, you're still able to get your 10 in those last 6 games, I mean, that's insane. There are some running back situations like maybe you go to Green Bay and you're like, I wonder how well this running back can perform. It's a passing offense. That's a passing offense too, and the production was there. In fact, I think it bodes well for him. I expect to see, not because Pat Mahomes is a bad quarterback, but I expect to see a slight drop-off in the passing touchdowns, simply because defenses are going to adjust, and I highly doubt, how rare it is to throw 50. I highly doubt he's going to do it 2 years in a row. That would be the first time ever in the NFL. So I think, those touchdowns will come back down, 35 to 40, whatever range, and maybe they lean a bit more on the running game. I think this is the perfect scenario for Damien Williams to be in. I think this is an awesome prediction right here.
Yeah, if you want to look at why we think that Pat Mahomes is going to regress, we love Pat Mahomes, by the way, great quarterback, but we think he's going to regress. Watch our video, our bust video of 2019. We give you a ton of evidence. I think we go on for like 15 minutes to explain it. The other thing, you're right, it's early June, and we're saying this is a bold prediction, but I have a feeling by August, if we did this video, it wouldn't even qualify as a bold prediction anymore. But based on today's information, he's a bold prediction.
Absolutely it is. So let's move on. I want to get to my other guy. All right, so here we are with Cooper Kupp. Now, so many people are anxious and nervous about Cooper Kupp. I've absolutely loved this guy, and I wanted to steer away from talking about him simply because I know how much I like him, and I like to change up what we talk about and talk about players we haven't mentioned recently. But I heard a few people make comments about how they don't trust Cooper Kupp this season. So thank you, whoever made those comments, for giving me an excuse to talk about one of my favorite receivers in the NFL. Right now, his ADP has him taken as the 47th overall player, and my bold prediction is that he is going to finish as a top 15 fantasy wide receiver. In PPR leagues, that could very well be top 12, right? I think that this guy's got a lot of value, and I love Cooper Kupp. So let's start off. We'll talk about the injury in a minute. We'll talk about his role in a minute. We'll talk about some other things, but we just got to talk about some stats, right? I want to just put some stats out there to just brag this guy up and show you what he was able to do last season. Last season, he finished second in passer rating generated. He generated a passer rating of 145.7. That is insane. He finished third for catching percentage among qualifying receivers with 81.6 catching percentage. That number is off the charts. 7.6 yards after catch per reception. So he's catching the ball and he's going an extra 7.5 yards. You don't see that from other running backs. That's second in the NFL. He averaged 2.27 yards per route run. That's 8th in the NFL. His numbers were insane. Before he got hurt, he was on a monstrous pace. He was on pace to get 125 targets, 91 catches, 1,300 yards, and 14 touchdowns. Those numbers are insane. Those are elite numbers. Those are beyond top 15. Those are like top 6 numbers for wide receivers. That is ridiculous. I absolutely love this guy. When Cooper Kupp was on the field, he made a huge difference. The Rams' first down percentage dropped from 47% to 38% when they lost Cooper Kupp. Jared Goff's completion percentage fell from 71 down to 61%, and his yards per attempt, I can't seem to speak right now, but it dropped from a very impressive and a far above average, one of the best in the NFL, 9.3 yards per attempt, down to a mediocre and below average 7.2 yards per attempt. I mean, fact of the matter is, when Goff is on the field, he is moving the chains, he is making big plays with Cooper Kupp. And when Cooper Kupp is gone, when he's not on the field, when he is injured, that offense is struggling. Goff threw just 7 touchdowns in the last 8 games he played without Kupp. That is less than a touchdown per game, and that is awful. And you may just want to say that Goff is a terrible quarterback, but he threw 32 touchdowns. That was 6th in the NFL. You know why he was able to do that? Because of the other games where he was able to have in monstrous games with Cooper Kupp. In fact, one game, I believe it was the Chiefs-Rams game, that insane game where they both scored over 50 points or whatever. That was a 5-touchdown game. That was with Kupp. It was just 1 or 2 weeks later, I believe, where Goff didn't throw any touchdowns at all. I mean, that is the difference that Cooper Kupp makes. Right now, I don't know a single player that we have evidence of that makes a bigger impact on their offense. Of course, besides quarterbacks, but that's pretty obvious. So really, the thing I need to address and the thing I need to convince you of as to why this bold prediction is accurate, it really has to just come down to his health. Cooper Kupp came out and said, "I can't predict how I'm going to feel even a week from now." However, he said that he is impressed the way that things are going. He is happy and surprised that things are trending up as fast as they are. He said each week is a lot of progress and he can see and feel a difference in his leg. That is absolutely huge. Of course, he's 25 years old, so he's young. Of course, a 35-year-old recovering from an ACL tear is a lot more difficult, a lot more hard than a 25-year-old. So I love that he's still a young wide receiver who's going to mature. Now, that was a bit of a generic answer to reports on him, right? He is a guy who's just trying to make everyone happy and everything. But I liked what he said. He is surprised how fast things are progressing. And really, reports are coming out that bode really well for his injury. Reports are that he's going to be practicing, full-on practicing, not just at practice, but running routes and catching balls before the preseason games even start. And questions were asked to head coach Sean McVay about whether or not he would play in preseason. Sean McVay said that they aren't going to play him either way. And I love that response. This idea of he will probably very well could be ready for preseason games and ready for week 1. But Sean McVay is a mature coach, even for such a young guy, and he's just going to keep his wide receiver healthy. He's a guy that looks, he may not be, but all signs are kind of showing that he's going to be healthy week 1. And if he is 100% by week 4, Cooper Kupp is easily a top 15 wideout. And in PPR leagues, like I said earlier, could be a top 12 for sure. So again, slowed down by injury, yes, but he is an elite, talented wide receiver.
Yeah, I love Cooper Kupp. One of my favorite wide receivers. You mentioned that, mine too. Only concern is injuries, but when the guy's on the field, it's undeniable how talented he is, how underrated he is. In my opinion, people talk about Woods and you talk about Cooks and all that, but bottom line, to me, he's better than both of those guys. He's a great wide receiver. So.
Well, and the thing I almost forgot to mention, so my apologies for that, but let's talk about the Todd Gurley situation. He did those numbers when Todd Gurley was hot, when Todd Gurley was red hot. Todd Gurley's struggling with injuries. There's a lot of concerns with Todd Gurley. A lot of people are leaning away from Todd Gurley, and rightfully so. That's an injury situation that I don't feel safe with. And so when you get your good wide receiver back that was helping charge you down the field and helping your quarterback out, that was the safety blanket and the playmaker, that's going to be huge. And he's probably going to be leaned on even more now that Todd Gurley's struggling. And I think that Todd Gurley struggling could seriously help Cooper Kupp's PPR value. But again, that's just what I think on this. Let me know if you guys disagree. Let me know if you agree. Whatever you guys want to say, drop a comment down below and tell us what you think.
All right.